So we're going to go ahead and loosen up these lug nuts on the tire while it's on the ground so the tire doesn't spin. We're going to do that with a 19mm socket. So now we're going to go ahead and remove the tire, and loosen up these lug nuts with a 19mm socket. We'll go ahead and just take that last one out by hand. Go ahead and grab the tire, pull it straight off. So we're going to go ahead and remove this brake drum. We're going to start by removing this screw right here. It's a T30. And this would be a T30 star bit. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and remove the drum. Sometimes just a little taps will free it up enough. And sometimes you'll have to hit it with a rubber mallet or hammer or pry it back with a screwdriver slightly. So we'll try a flat-headed screwdriver. Let's see if we can pry this forward. So we're going to go ahead and remove the hub, the 4 screws behind it, but we need to suspend the brake shoe plate before we do that, because when we remove the 4 screws, this plate will be free. So we're going to go ahead and use a bungee cord and suspend this to the vehicle. We need to remove this speed sensor bolt here, but because it does not have clearance around the brake line, we're going to need to back this brake line out. On the driver's side rear, this is different, where the bolt has clearance. So the passenger side rear, we're going to have to back this brake line. We're going to use a 13mm. And due to the fact that we're working with brake fluid, you may want to put a drip pan or rag underneath this. You may have some fluid leak. And now we should have clearance. We're going to go ahead and use a T27 for the speed sensor bolt. Because our speed sensor will not come out past the brake line, we're going to take this brake line and bracket. We're going to undo the bolt on the bracket and just move them up out of the way. We're going to use a 5/16 socket. And then with our brake line loose, we can move it out of the way, pull our speed sensor, straight out, and we'll need to remove it from that bracket also. So we're going to take the speed sensor, I'm going to remove it off of this bracket by pulling straight up. It's just a press fit, like that. So this bracket here with the brake line on it, we're going to just go ahead and put that bolt back in. So when the backing plate for the shoes comes loose, when we take these 4 bolts out, this doesn't rock and bend the brake line. So we reinstalled that a touch to stop it from draining. So now we're going to take out these 4 bolts that hold your hub bearing assembly in. They are a 15 millimeter. And just loosen that one up, move on to the next. Just crack them free. Now once you're down to your last one, you will have a shoe assembly, backing plate, and hub that are totally free. Just be aware of that. So now that the 4 bolts on the back of the hub bearing assembly are free, we're going to go ahead and try and remove this. Just be careful that this whole shoe and backing plate are loose. Sometimes it will pop off. Sometimes you need a couple of taps with a hammer or a screwdriver to pry it. We're going to try and give it a couple of taps. And then slide the hub bearing assembly out. There you go. In the back here where the back of the hub bearing assembly sat, you just want to make sure you scrape off and get rid of the loose pieces of rust so your new piece fits snugly inside. You can use a wire brush, flathead screwdriver, compressed air, whatever you need to get rid of the old rust residue. So we're going to put a little bit of anti-seize on the mating surfaces here. So now we're going to go ahead and install the hub assembly. You have to push to seat it in. Go ahead and use a rubber mallet. It's a 4-pound sledge that I have here. Whatever you need to hit this, seat it backwards flush. So now we're going to go ahead and move our backing plate so we can put our 4 bolts into the hub assembly through the backing plate. Let's make sure it's lined up. And start the threads by hand. And once you've started them by hand, move over to your 15mm socket. Snug it up. Move across to another one. And I just like to snug these up. I will check the front, make sure that I am pulling in and pulling flush any leftover gap on the hub bearing assembly. And now we'll check the front, make sure we've pulled it in all the way tight. So this gap right here, you want to make sure as you tighten down that this gap closes and this hub bearing assembly seats flush against the backing plate. Now that we have them snug, we'll go ahead and torque them down to the vehicle specifics. So we're going to go ahead now and torque these bolts down to 37 foot-pounds. Okay, so now that the backing plate and the hub bearing is secure, we're going to go ahead and remove the bungee cord that we used. Now you can remove whatever it is you use to tie up your plate. So now we're going to reinstall this speed sensor. To do that, we need to remove this brake line. And this bolt here. remove this bolt here, 5/16 socket. And this will allow us to move the brake cable up and out of the way. So we're going to go ahead and put the speed sensor in place. Go ahead and put that bolt back in. I'm going to use the T27 on the speed sensor bolt. And now we can reinstall the brake line. So next, with a 5/16 socket, we're going to reinstall the brake line bracket. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down the brake line with a 13mm wrench. Good. So next we're going to put this back onto the bracket. Just push it in place like that. So once you get your drum lined up, go ahead and squeeze and try and push back. If you have to, use a rubber mallet or hammer to get it to go over brakes. So now we're going to go ahead and put in the drum screw. There's a T30 screw. Gonna have to hold that and tighten that down. And that's it. So we're gonna have to bleed the brakes. To do that, we're gonna turn the ignition forward, one click. We're going to go ahead and pump the brakes 3 to 4 times. Shut the ignition off. So we're here in the back, rear right, where we disconnected the brake line earlier. We're going to go ahead, take the cap off of our bleeder, and we're going to gravity bleed these brakes. This is a 10 mil, so we're going to use our wrench here. Just turn it until it starts to drip. Just like that, and we're looking for continuous flow. Let us know that the air has been bled from the line. All right, so we don't see any hesitation or any stops or breaks in the flow. So now we're just going to go ahead and close it up again with that 10 mil. Nice and snug. We're going to grab a rag and we'll wipe it off. Make sure the fluid has stopped. We're done. And then, last step, put your cap back on. And just as an extra step, take a little brake clean, spray off the residue. And again, make sure your drip pan is down to collect any of that runoff. Just dry it up. This helps you make sure you don't have any leaks after you're done tightening your lines. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the rear tire. We're going to line it up with the studs. Grab your lug nuts, thread them on by hand. Until they're snug. And I like to rock it just a little bit back and forth to get these tight, so you know the wheel is flush against the hub. All right, we have little to no movement. So now that we have them tightened, just finger tightened, we're going to go back with our 19 millimeter and a torque wrench at 103 foot-pounds. Tighten these down in a star pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.